Hey, how you doing? Thanks for joining the show. Welcome to Garden Fork Radio. It's me, Eric, your host. I'm here today with my friend Will. I don't know if you remember Will. Will is has more energy than six of us all together. So, welcome, sir.
How are we doing, sir?
I am fine.
New York looks good this time of year.
Yes, it was about 70 degrees, and now it's 32. It's all the snow is gone, so I'm very happy about that. And the car is parked, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, we're in the dry tundra right now. There's no snow in the Midwest, really. All there is just kind of brown grass and dirt left where the plow truck pushed it all up on a pile. Yeah,
earlier this week, my honeybees, which are on my friend's roof, are flying all around, and now they're clustered again. So there's just a little yo-yo effect here. But I'm looking, it's the middle of March, so positive thoughts.
Absolutely. I think the only snow that we have is the giant pile of snow in the Fleet Farm parking lot. You know what I'm saying?
So you run a fireworks company, and I mentioned 3D printers, and you said I have 7 of them.
Yeah, it started as a weird hobby with my kids, and then we figured out a way to pivot to save money and make money with it, which is it's rather interesting how 3D printers are kind of infiltrating the business world and solving people's problems, one little thing at a time as they kind of work through their organization. And we're no different. Who would have thought a 3D printer would be used in the fireworks industry?
I want to get one, but I don't want to buy it because I know I'll use it 3 times and then I'll give it away probably. So I'm hoping to find a free one on what's called the Buy Nothing app, I think it's called.
I know that you think that, but oddly enough, it's weird how all of your hobbies and all the things you do, suddenly 3D printers work for it. My wife, she thought, oh, why do we have this? The kids are just going to make junk toys and you're going to make weird projects and stuff like that. And she actually prints more things out on the 3D printer than we do because she's like, oh, I can find something that can go in this drawer for an organizer. I could print out something called a Gridfinity, and all of a sudden, the next thing you know, we have all these organizers and all these different spaces for things that we didn't know we needed to get organized.
I have a drawer in my kitchen that a regular silverware organizer does not fit. The little, the plastic one you buy or the wire mesh metal one, it is loose and moves all around in the drawer. And my dream is to get my nephew, who has a 3D printer, to build me a silverware organizer that fits exactly into there. And it might be worth buying one just for that. That's my excuse.
Should I blow your hair back on this one? So the way Gridfinity works is it makes a plastic square, so you draw or you measure out the size of the drawer or the shape that you have, and let's say it's 6 squares by 9 squares. Well, all the squares are universal, and you make the pattern to fit that, and then all of the pieces of it snap into it, kind of like granimals. So if you needed a larger one for knives and a smaller whatever, you can print out every one of the different shapes, and you don't have to design anything. You just go into the catalog and pick what you want. So I want a spoon holder. Gridfinity has one. I need Post-it notes, business cards, cables, anything you can think of. Somebody has pre-designed one in this system. You just press print on the ones you need, and the next morning when you wake up, all the different parts are there, and you snap them into the thing, and it works flawlessly.
Oh, sign me up.
Yeah, it's just one of the things that you can do. I mean, I know that Eric was talking about some of the different websites you can download things, but my buddy Matt was looking for something for one of his motorcycles, and I went on one of the sites and typed it in, and there it is, the part that he needed for the back part of his motorcycle, because I guess it commonly breaks, so somebody designed it. We just printed it out, and I gave it to him, and he just put it on his motorcycle. So our printers run nonstop at our house.
I was thinking, especially for hooking up water systems, like I have a spring in the back of my house, and I need to run, we call it black poly, in Connecticut, and then you have these little connectors, and you need like a right angle elbow in that. And I'm wondering if you could 3D print a pipe fitting with enough strength, to withstand 60 psi water and some hose clamps.
Absolutely, actually, there's not to really get into the weeds on this, but there's different types of plastic that 3D printers can run on. Most of the printers in the world run on something called PLA, which is just a standard, I don't want to say kind of cheap plastic, but it's the everyday plastic. Yeah. And then there's like PTG and ABS. Well, if you're familiar with ABS plastic, you can make ABS plastic parts that are super rigid. They have certain ASA parts that are like able to be stored outside so it doesn't bleach in the sun. So you can design your part and then you just tell the printer, hey, I want to print this in this form. It automatically changes all the settings to be able to work with whatever plastic you're about to run through it. And then it runs at whatever speed to make it work. So PLA, it might run at 210 degrees and it might print at 100% speed. If you switch to ABS, because it's a little bit harder plastic to work with, the printer automatically dials itself back to run at, let's say, 250 or 300 degrees Celsius, and it runs at 60% because it has to run slower to make it so the part works out. You don't even have to think about it. The printer does it for you.
Oh, sign me up.
Just saying.
That could save me a trip to the Home Depot, which is 45 minutes away from my little house in the woods,
Yeah, I mean, you can print out toys and gadgets and things like that. My boys have printed out a dozen different things, but like we have a Google Home Wi-Fi system, those white kind of pods that are just kind of awkward shaped.
Yeah.
Somebody designed a 3D printed holder that I can just screw to the wall, put it in there, and the plug matches right into it, and it looks like it came from the factory.
People with small children could probably print out lost Lego parts.
That's an interesting one. So there is nowhere in any of the forums that you can download Lego parts, because I know that I'm guessing like Bamboo Labs or Creality has some agreement that they're not going to do it, but you can find rogue websites that have Lego parts on them, and then you just import them into the program and print them out. But Lego is pretty tight on the Lego side of it, but I do know that you can print them. In fact, I actually just printed, do you remember the little green army guys with like the base legs that are like flat and they're kind of flat colored? Somebody designed a kit of those, and I printed out a whole, 2 or 3 dozen of those out of the plastic, and the next morning they were just sitting there on the printer and gave them to the kids to play with.
Oh, that's a flashback to my childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as a guy with firecrackers, you'd always set up the Army things and shoot Roman candles and bottle rockets and all that kind of stuff, and have the Army guys and try to launch them into outer space. So
yeah, we would blow up the Army guys with firecrackers.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's weird how you have this, I don't know if it's a human innate thing, but to fire and explosions and that, you're like, I mean, my father did not teach me to be amazed and thrilled by that. I just am.
Yeah, there's a visceral thing that's almost primal inside of people with regards to fire, like sitting around a campfire. Even if you live in the city and you have one of those fireballs in the backyard and you throw some wood from the gas station in there and burn it in the backyard, you sit there with the kids, there's just something that happens inside of you as a human around that's kind of primal, and fireworks kind of fall into the same thing. The light, the sound, the experience is one of the reasons why, people are enamored by it.
Yeah, because there's, if you look at the fire, it's kind of like looking at TV.
Yeah, I find it relaxing, a nice weekend up at the camp or something like that, and drive around the campground, and we sell 7 truckloads a year, semi-truckloads of firewood a year through the resort for people just to have campfires at their campsites, and it's just probably the number one thing behind going boating. So boating on the lakes, campfires, and then riding your UTV are, the top 3 things that happen at the resort.
I don't have a boat. No, I have a canoe. I have all those things.
You have a plywood boat. I saw you building one on the internet. You got a new one coming, don't you?
Yes, I have to actually follow up. I made kind of a review video about the different techniques I used. And for a long time, I was just thrilled with this idea of, instead of using fiberglass, to use essentially polyurethane glue or tight bond waterproof glue, and then the mesh drywall tape, the kind of net drywall tape.
Sure.
And it works okay, but on the forums, everyone's like, oh, this is amazing. And what I found works better, and I owe everyone some videos on this, is to simply build your boat out of plywood and then coat it with tight bond glue that's watered down, and then wrap it in canvas painting tarps, and then paint it with latex paint. And that's That's it. You're done.
Does the latex paint hold up, or would you have to use oil-based paint?
No, the latex paint is essentially rubber.
Really?
And it soaks in. You have to give it a couple of coats, but it soaks in. And that is going to be this spring. So I'm going to kind of abandon the idea of the mesh drywall thing. And on the interior of the boat, you can take the Tight Bond 3, which is the waterproof glue, and you can water it down a little bit, and you can roll it on with like a 3/4 inch nap roller and give it several coats, and that's essentially waterproofing the inside of the boat. So I'm looking forward to that. And I want to move away from the rectilinear design of the boats as well.
Sure. You can probably print some 3D parts on your 3D printer for your boat for like holding the oars and all that kind of stuff for the lights.
Oh, yes. And wow. Now my head's spinning. I have to find a sponsor. Is there a 3D printer sponsor? Does someone have a 3D printer sitting in their closet they want to send me?
Maybe.
P.O. Box 130, Cobra, Connecticut. Hey, real quick, I have a new link for the Garden Fork store on Amazon. If you happen to be shopping on Amazon, appreciate it if you use my link to go to Amazon and start your shopping. The link will be in the show notes here. It's a universal link. I can explain it later in the podcast sometime, but just please use that link. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
The interesting thing about the 3D printers for us is, where we save the most money, to go back to why do we use it for work or for a pyro company. So we make all sorts of plastic parts all the time that eventually become these devices that are used on stages in stadiums and baseball games and football games and all that stuff. That stuff all originates that you see coming off the roof out of plastic holders. So for us, I was looking at redesigning a part. Well, it was $27,000 to get an injection mold company to make the aluminum parts for this.
Yep.
So I hired a guy on Fiverr to draw the stuff in 3D CAD for like $25, and then I sent it to the 3D printer. I printed it out. I walked to the factory. We put the pyrotechnics inside of the device and fired it and figured out it worked. Saved us $27,000 on the design work for it. And it was kind of interesting because we called the guys in Spain because that's where our manufacturing facility is for plastics. And I was talking to the guys at the company, and they're like, well, what do you mean you made this at home? And I said, I just hired somebody to design one, and I printed it on a 3D printer. And they said, that won't work. And then I sent them the video that we shot with FaceTime of it where I showed it printed and then I showed it in use. And then we pressure tested this thing. I put it in. I left it outside in 40 below weather, so it's super cold, and then we shot out of it. We shot the same device 7 times to see if we could fracture it. We ran over it with a car. We did all these things to see if we could break it, because ultimately when you have explosives, they have to be safe and do what you hope they to do when you fire them, because if it's supposed to go up and go 100 feet, I needed to do that. Well, reliable plastic parts mean that. So I was leery about the idea of using a 3D printer to make these parts. I'm like, this is just going to break. It's for toys. And sure enough, we built these different parts, and they're going to be going in production here shortly. But we bought 4 printers at the property. I can run 25 parts per every 2 hours off of each of the printers. I showed the employees how to swap out the filament. We bought 4 cheap ones on Amazon, lined them up in a row, loaded the parts, and then started running, and I can make 400 parts in 3 days.
Do you have a particular brand of printer you like?
So for home use with kids and family and my wife, I use Bamboo Labs because they're kind of the Apple interface, like the iPhone interface, super elegant, bulletproof. My kids can't wreck it, that kind of stuff. That's Bamboo Labs. And then for the office, I went cheap and easy, which was Creality is the name of the company.
I've heard of that.
Sold on Amazon. Yeah. The only thing about Creality is more industrial. They don't have... Bamboo Labs has a library that has 50,000 items that you could print at any point in time, and everything from little kid things in your house to Apple Watch band holders to toilet paper roll holders in your bathroom, versus Creality where it's industrial stuff it's, I need this part for my workshop. Or a really big one is actually parts for woodworking, all the different jigs and holders and drill bit pieces and everything like that. There's a million different parts you can print for your wood shop to be able to do that. So it's you're into woodworking, your 3D printer makes you a better woodworker. You're into automotive, your 3D printer makes parts for your automotive. So 3D printing is not really a hobby on its own. It's more of a drug that you can use in your current hobbies to make them better.
Yeah, this is funny because I know Bree Pettis, who started MakerBot, which is one of the first consumer-grade 3D printers, and it was a flat pack. Basically, it was made out of laser cut plywood, and then you would just slot it together. And he started Thingiverse.
Sure.
I don't know if he started it himself or did he work with a group, but he's very much a group What's that where you have a server and it's all free and people share? I don't know what that's called. Open source, I guess it would be called.
Yep. Yep.
And now it's just amazing. Just talking to you, my head is spinning about stuff. Like even for my computer desk, which I owe everyone a video about. I thought that would be boring, but then I thought maybe when people see I built my, but I'm obsessed about making the cables run nicely along the little uprights and stuff.
They have all that.
And
every version of every cable management you could think of.
Cable management is something I aspire to.
They even have art stuff. Like my wife has these little art trinket things that she found online where it prints out a little picture and then you just put it into like a wood frame. So then you have this elevated 3D kind of looking photo that then is inside of a frame. So you can make things like your litho thing that you talked about the other day on the other podcast. If you haven't listened to that podcast, go back. But that was great. I mean, that I never even thought of that idea that you could make raised printing. So then I went out and I typed in, litho printing and all of that stuff. And holy cow, there's thousands of things that are already pre-made. You mean, you can get in the business of designing your own things in 3D printing. But in reality, when you have millions of people who are designing things and then they're uploading it for free in this community, I bet you Thingiverse has 2 or 3 million models that you could print out at any point in time. So if you can think it, they probably have made it.
Wow. Yeah, everyone, if you look up like lino block printing or letterpress printing, I love all that stuff. I would love to have a letterpress machine, but it takes up some space. But in 7th grade, I think I grew up in Wisconsin back when it was a very progressive state and they were trying out all sorts of education stuff. And they're also a very nuts and bolts state like Minnesota, and Will can attest to this, but they had industrial arts class in 7th grade, and we learned drafting, we learned plastic injection molding, and we also learned letterpress printing. And I learned the type drawer, where the E is, where the G is, where the F is, that it's not all lined out alphabetical. It's figured out by the number of times you use the letter E and A. And I made myself some custom stationery when I was a 7th grader, and I thought I was pretty cool because I had custom stationery. But I just love that analog thing, and then to mash it up with a 3D printer, which is this, you build this object in a 3D world in your computer and download it to this, essentially this thing that spits plastic out of a nozzle. I love that stuff. I love it.
It just blows my mind that like right now, while we're on the podcast, you could pick an item, I could hit OK, and 3 seconds later, it's printing on the printer that's sitting right behind me. And anywhere from as short as 3 minutes to maybe 5 hours, depending on how complicated the item is, it prints. It's like Christmas morning every day at our house, because what we'll do is after dinner, everybody picks whatever they want to print on the printers for the house. And then at night, you just send them to the printer. When you wake up in the morning, it's done. And you just open up the door and boom, there it is. This 3D object that didn't exist yesterday is now sitting in your house.
My friend Gabe from the Save It for Parts YouTube channel, his deep dive now is making homemade satellite dishes.
Sure.
And you have the receiver, I guess the antenna of it, is essentially a lot of times a copper wire that's coiled in a specific orientation and the number of coils per inch. And is it clockwise? Is it counterclockwise? What's the space between the coils? And he has built what are essentially plastic cages or guides to thread the copper wire through. It's like 12 or 10 gauge wire. Because to receive the electronic signals, the communications from like the 1098 megahertz band, the antenna has to be a certain configuration tuned to the 1098 megahertz band. It's not just it can sometimes just be a wire. But even that, he's building these little holders, sometimes they're big holders, and teaching other people how to do it, which I love. I love it.
I will say, I mean, if you're looking at getting into 3D printing, there's a printer, I think, for like $300 on Amazon from Creality that would work. I think it's called the Ender 3. I think Eric's was the Ender 1 that he was talking about. The ones we use at the shop to make parts for Pyro are the Ender 3 from Creality. At home, we have the P1S is the Bamboo Labs, which is, I mean, they just dropped the price on anything. I think it used to be, when you used to buy it used to be $900 or $899, and I think they dropped the price to like $499 or something like that on it. But that one, unfortunately, Bamboo Labs doesn't sell on Amazon, but they do have it directly on their website. That's the only way they sell their printers.
But Creality has a much easier interface.
Bamboo Labs has an easier interface. Creality has more options. So if you want to get super tech geeky, Creality is good, but it also has the ability to be dialed back. So like you could go to Maker World or Online Labs or Thingiverse, like you talked about, download any file and you just import it into Creality. So Creality's kind of in the mode of, hey, go get your files somewhere else and print them on the printer. Bamboo Labs is more of the, hey, we have a gigantic library you can pick from and you can import your stuff. So it just depends on kind of which direction you want to go. Most people go the Creality route, so that Amazon one's an easy one to pick, but Bamboo Labs is just as popular.
And then you could also go on Fiverr and outsource if you need a certain 3D design, because 3D software does have a pretty big learning curve, I've in my opinion. And then there's these people that can bang it out for you for $50, which I love.
Yeah, if you're building something super complex, absolutely. If you're building something simple, I actually think Creality's drawing tool is a lot easier to use, which is if you want to make a box and then you want to punch a hole in it because there's a wire of a certain size, you literally can just say, I need a box that's 3 inches by 8 inches and it's 6 inches tall and has a 2-inch hole in the side of it, and then the software will make it. Or if you need a shape or a part. Actually, if you really want to blow your hair back, there's a new camera that came out from the company Creality where you can take pictures with this camera, and it will make a 3D model of whatever you're taking a picture of, and then you can print it out and make a copy of it. So let's say you had like this glass that I'm holding in my hand here. I know you can't see it on the podcast, but I could take a picture of this glass with that camera and then send it to the printer and make an exact copy of it.
I watched this archaeology show from Britain called Time Team. It's on YouTube now, and I love it. And they have an iPad, and they'll walk into a ruin, a ruin of a castle or something, and the guy or person, woman or man, just holds it and takes a bunch of pictures from a single place, and then they pop it into some sort of software, and it does a 3D rendering of the space they were in.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Same idea, just the opposite version. So instead of taking a picture of the outside walls of a 3D space, imagine taking a picture of a 3D object and then just printing it out. And I've seen some of the pieces, like they had, I don't want to say somebody's face, but they took a picture of like somebody's face all the way around, and it did a pretty good job of replicating it to make, another version of that person's face.
Wow, you could have 2 Erics.
One's probably enough.
How do you replicate the lump on his forehead? That's what I want to know.
That's a lot of film. I'm kidding.
As I lose my hair, this is from 3rd grade playing football, the lump that never went away. And now all of a sudden I see people, they're not looking at my eyes, they're looking at my forehead.
You draw little eyes on it and a little smiley face with an arrow pointed down.
That's funny. So
there you go.
When we first met, you just had this amazing amount of energy, and you had bought a resort in Wisconsin, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I bought the fireworks company, and it sounds like it's gone pretty good.
Yeah, both of them are doing very well. This will be the 8th year of the resort. We finished the final expansion, so I did all these phase expansions of it, and we're now up to 90 seasonal campsites, 5 cabins, bar, restaurant. We've got a food truck. I think we've got 36 docks on the lake. It's kind of become a big machine. And then on the side, as a side hustle, I decided to buy a fireworks company, which then became an industrial complex of great proportions. It's expanding quickly. It's amazing to us on the overall acceptance of what the fireworks company has really become in the industry. If you've watched TV in the last, I would say probably 6 months, any sporting event, the likelihood of you seeing something that I've been involved in is pretty high. If you've gone to a concert, I mean, we have 5 stadium tours this year and 17 concerts running on 3 continents right now.
Maybe when I do live streams, you could do the fireworks behind me.
We could. Here's Eric. Ta-da!
I'm lucky I can get the live stream button to work.
The part for me that's weird, and like there's all these weird firsts that are happening in my life. Like we had this year is the first time we did business in South America. So there's countries in South America that I've never been to or sometimes never even heard of. And all of a sudden, Lady Gaga or some artist is going there to do some kind of tour. AC/DC's on tour down there or something like that. So we have to ship the products to there, and learning how all of that works and how to get product into Peru and Argentina and Brazil. I mean, when I bought the company, we were operating in the United States and Canada. Now we operate in 26 countries around the world, and learning all the languages and how everything works and the customs and all those things to make it work is kind of exciting. I mean, there's never 2 days that are exactly the same in the power company. When we started, I had 16 people working at the headquarters, and now there's, I think, just shy of 30, and we have 127 field technicians. So, I mean, it's definitely changed into something significantly bigger than I ever expected it to be.
Did you have to learn the management of that many people, or was it kind of innate? Or
well, I originated from, I mean, if you want to rewind time all the way back to the beginning of my journey in the whole world, I worked for Best Buy Corporation, and I'd have 15 or 20 people reporting to me as a supervisor, or a manager or director inside of the business. So I'd had the ability to understand how those ecosystems worked. And then when I moved on to my own companies and we started acquiring businesses and buying different things as we went, the management style of it, actually, it's oddly enough, the way I describe it when I speak to people about this kind of stuff is, as you go through life, you're building tools in a toolbox, and sometimes you use those tools all the time, and sometimes you rarely use those tools, but always hold on to them because you never know. Things that I learned when I worked for Best Buy Corporation, when I owned my software company, when we owned a distribution company or the Bitcoin thing, and all these other things that I've owned over the years, the tools I've learned in each of those have been just sitting in the box. And like just this morning, I sent out an organizational chart change that we were going to make, very similar to something I did 25 years ago when I worked for Best Buy. So it's kind of funny how that stuff comes back around.
Yeah, my whole thing was just keep the crew happy,
The real challenge right now is the difference in personalities between the generations of individuals and how to motivate those individuals, because older individuals are managing younger individuals and they don't respond the same way. So working through the personalities is really a unique thing. And as you know, in the entertainment industry and, working as a person on TV sets and those types of things, there's usually a unique personality of the individuals that work in that industry and strong opinions. So there's a lot of times where I feel like I'm on a reality show and like we're going to go to commercial break because there's somebody about to melt into the floor over in the Pack Ship building. Now we go to commercial break and see what happens when Tom and Bob get in it in the parking lot, But they're passionate people that are excited about things, and I'm here to kind of stimulate that and keep the boat pointed in the right direction. It's significantly grown beyond the fact of me running the company, and it's now I'm running a team that's running the company. And I like to say it this way, that I work really, really hard for 31 people that work at our headquarters. I work for them; they don't work for me. And I let them do whatever they possibly can to grow their businesses and inspire them to do great things. And in fact, it's good for everybody in the company. So more of a cheerleader, and, I break the tie when there's an argument more than anything else.
Oh, wow. Excellent. Well, cool. So it's the Bear Paw Resort.
The Bear Paw Resort.
And, what's the name of it? Does it start with an H, the town up there?
It's near Hayward, Wisconsin. It's actually in Birchwood, Wisconsin. It's closer to Birchwood than Hayward, but it's in that tourist trap area of Hayward, which that's grown out of control too over the last number of years.
But the Bear Paw Resort's the place to go.
The Bear Paw Resort. I thought of you the other day. The Turk's Inn. Does that ring a bell?
Yes.
Do you know what that is?
Yes.
We were driving and we were talking about supper clubs. I was taking a friend to a supper club for the first time, and I was talking about these things, and I talked about the Turk's Inn, where these investors from New York bought a supper club in Hayward, Wisconsin, took everything out of it, and then recreated it in what is it?
Williamsburg.
Manhattan or in Brooklyn? Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Hipster Central.
Yep.
I remember those from when I was a kid.
We went there the other day. I had prime rib. I still think I'm wearing it right now. It's heavy. Prime rib and grasshoppers and old fashions.
Oh, this is all a flashback. All right, well, cool. So anyway, if you have any thoughts or questions about 3D printers, it would be really fun to hear from you. It's gardenfork87@gmail.com.